Hello, everybody. This is Mike Smith from Nymphs, Knots, and Nonsense. And today I'm going to be taking you through my own variation of the Rainbow Warrior. The big change is that instead of the opalescent tinsel that you use for the body, I just use silver brassy wire and wrap it over itself in order to give it some texture. I use this fly on still waters a lot, especially when it's a really slow day. My usual techniques aren't pulling any fish. Maybe it's a little bit overcast, and I'll tie on one of these guys and either strip it under an indicator, so give it a good figure eight stripping, or I will just let it sit under an indicator and bob in the waves. Materials for this fly are as follows. You need a hook. I tie these on jig hooks. This is a fulling mill jig hook, heavy size, and I'm going to do it in a size 12 and tie the fly a little bit short. That gives me better hooking power, a little bit of extra weight on the fly, but mostly it gives me that bigger hooking power when I fish on still waters. You'll need a 1/8 inch bead. These are silver in coming from Fly Shack. Did you see these guys? They're slotted tungsten beads. You need some brassy wire. This is ultra wire, brassy size in silver. You'll need a pheasant tail flat. You need some UTC Ultra Thread 70 denier in fluorescent orange, and you need some dubbing. And in this case, I've got the Hairline Light Shade Rainbow Scud Dub. So the Rainbow Scud Dub, I love the different colors on it. There's another one that I use, which is it's also a Hairline, and it's a Semnios Fusion Dub in Rainbow, which is also a nice color. The one thing about this Fusion Dub is that it's got longer fibers, so it's a little bit harder to use on a smaller fly. Start the fly. I already added the bead to the fly because sometimes that's a comedy of errors trying to get it on, so you don't really want to see that. I got big fat chum sometimes. I can't get it on there. But just start the thread, and what I want to do is just build up a little dam here. It doesn't have to be like crazy huge because we're going to put other material in there to hold it, but I like to at least get it so that it doesn't slide back on me. Cut off my extra thread here and take that back a little bit. Next thing we're going to tie on is some pheasant tail fibers. You just need 3 or 4 of them. There's 4, and I'm going to size them up. I want them to stick out a little bit over the hook, but remember I'm tying this short, so probably about that is the length that I want. And I want to wrap this down to a point where the thread hangs down equal to the hook point, and that's as far as I'm going to build this fly as far as distance to the left there. I'll bring this back up, cut off the edge here, the extras, bring this up, and we are ready for ultra wire. I learned this technique from a Davie McPhail video where he talked about building bloodworms, and he built the bloodworm all with red wire. He wrapped the body starting at the head, and this is what we're going to do. Starting at the head here, put the wire inside of the slot of that bead, tie it in, and that's all you do. So just tie it in, give it a little tug, make sure it's not going to come out, and then throw in a half hitch there. But Davey builds his bloodworms this way, where he wraps the body from the head to the tail, turns around and wraps the wire over the top of itself, but leaves gaps and it builds structure and texture that way. So this is what we're going to do. Now I've got this set up to go rotary. I'm just going to have positive control on my wire here and wrap it. Each wrap goes right next to each other. Now, I like that technique, and I I was looking at it and I said, hey, that's a pretty good idea. I like it. And I like it for bloodworms. But then for the Rainbow Warrior, you have this opalescent, it's opalescent tinsel, and sometimes it's a pain to work with. So I looked and said, well, I could replace that with silver wire. Silver wire would give me a lot of reflection, a lot of brilliance, some weight, right? When you add it all up, that weight starts to get heavy. And you could still keep that texture like the Rainbow Warrior has a texture of silver wire over the top of the opal tinsel body. And now we're at the end here, and this is what you do. So I'm right at the end, and you start wrapping over the top of itself. You just cross over, and then you leave a gap. So you leave a really nice gap in between rows as you come back, and I am done. So it took me, 4 wraps to come back across the body. And now I'm just going to tie that guy off. 2, 3, 4, 6. Okay, one more. Okay, just helicopter him off. All right, and now if you look at it, you can see that texture that the wrapping added into that fly. Now the next step for me is I'll take some of my fluorescing UV clear fly finish and add that over the top of the wire just to give it a little bit of a coating. And I just add a little thread or a little bead of it and then just wiggle it back and forth with the tip of my nozzle here. Manage my tails there. And we are ready, and I'm going to UV him. Also, you see this this thread that I use really glows. If I back this off a little bit, it really, really, really glows because it's fluorescent orange. Okay, and what this does is you'll see how the entire body glows. This fluorescing UV makes that whole body glow when it gets hit with UV light, aka sunlight. So it just adds a little bit of extra visibility to it. Give a QA test. I don't get any on my finger. I am ready for the next step. And that next step is some rainbow dubbing. So take this. Now, the trick with this is you don't need a lot, especially for smaller flies. Smaller flies do not need that much dubbing. Not a shocker. Okay, and okay, that looks about right. Okay, and I just make a little loose dubbing noodle, slap it up there, wrap it around, manage my tail, dubbing okay. Couple wraps here to build a little hot spot behind the bead. Maybe close off the slot a little bit. I'm not too worried about it. Then half hitch it. Give it a whip finish. Tug it, tug it, tug it. Cut it. Hey, I've got a little bit of extra here, so I'm just going to cut it off. Cool. And that is my Rainbow Warrior variation. As always, thanks for watching. Thanks for giving me a like, a subscribe, and all that stuff. And I will see you in the next video.